Ashlee Robinson was on the vacation of a lifetime. She was in Zanzibar, which is off the coast of Tanzania. She was there celebrating her 31st birthday.
The Indian Ocean does not keep secrets the way people expect it to. It is too open, too vast, too bright. The secrets here are not kept by the water. They are kept by the people who live along its edges. The vendors in the spice markets who see the same face twice and say nothing and file it away. The resort staff who move through corridors at midnight and understand that discretion is part of the job description. The locals who recognize a man the second time they see him and the third time after that, who begin to know the shape of him, the rhythm of him, the pattern of where he goes and when and why. Zanzibar draws people with beauty. It holds them with something harder to name. It sits off the coast of Tanzania like something that was placed there deliberately. Like the world needed one place where everything looked exactly the way it does in photographs and actually looked better in person. Turquoise water that does not look real. White sand that does not look earned. Architecture that is 8 centuries old, standing within sight of luxury that arrived last year. The old and the new occupying the same island, the same coastline, the same community. People go to Zanzibar to begin things. Honeymoons, anniversaries, milestone birthdays, the moments they will spend the rest of their lives telling stories about, the moments they take photographs of, because they need proof that something this beautiful actually happened to them. A 31-year-old woman named Ashlee Robinson came here to celebrate the beginning of everything she had been building toward. She never came home. Before we talk about what happened on that island, you need to understand who Ashlee Robinson was. Not just the facts of her. Not just the biography. You need to understand the architecture of the life she was building. Because that architecture is the reason this story matters as much as it does. Because the gap between who Ashlee was and what the official account says happened to her is the gap that her family, her community, and this investigation refused to accept. Her full name was Ashlee Jenae Robinson. She was born on April 5, 1995 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She grew up in South Jersey. The kind of upbringing that teaches you the difference between what you have and what you want, and how to close that gap with nothing but your own will. She moved to Miami, eventually, built herself there, remade herself there, made Miami into the platform from which everything that came after was launched. By the time she turned 31, Ashlee Robinson was recognizable to more than 100,000 people across Instagram and TikTok. That number matters, not because follower counts define a person, but because 100,000 people is a community. It is a stadium full of people who have opted in to watching your life unfold, who have decided that what you are building is worth their time and their attention and their daily scroll. Ashlee's platform was built around 3 things that were inseparable from each other: luxury travel, intentional living, and what she called, in her own words, the soft life. Now, if you have not spent time in the corner of the internet Ashlee occupied, the soft life means something specific. It is not passivity. It is not waiting for someone to hand you things. It is the deliberate, conscious decision to stop settling for less, to stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for you, to stop accepting the relationships and the experiences and the circumstances that drain you and replace them, one by one, with the things that fill you. Ashlee lived this philosophy publicly. She shared the dinners at the kind of restaurants that do not put prices on the menu. She shared the resort pools and the first-class cabins, and the fashion that said, "I have arrived somewhere and I know it." She shared herself in the way that people only do when they genuinely believe in what they are building. When it does not feel like performance. When it feels like proof. She described herself as divested, a term in her community for a woman who has consciously, deliberately chosen to remove herself from relationships, situations, and environments that do not serve her. A woman who has done the work of understanding what she deserves, and decided to accept nothing less. This was not a casual brand. This was a philosophy. And the 100,000 people who followed her were not just spectators. They were women, predominantly, who had adopted that philosophy themselves, or were in the process of adopting it. Who saw in Ashlee's feed not just content, but evidence. Proof that the life you choose on your own terms is real and attainable and worth building toward. Ashlee was not just performing a lifestyle. She was making an argument. And when everything fell apart on that island, the people who had accepted that argument were not going to accept a simple explanation for how it ended. His name was Joseph McCann. He went by Joe. He was 45 years old. He was the founder of Asymmetric Financial, a cryptocurrency hedge fund and venture capital firm. Not a small-time operation. Asymmetric Financial was backed by prominent institutional investors, including figures affiliated with Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most recognized names in Silicon Valley venture capital. Joe McCann was not a peripheral figure in the crypto world. He was a recognizable name, quoted in Forbes, mentioned in the Wall Street Journal. The kind of person who speaks at conferences and sits in rooms where the next decade of finance is being planned. Estimated net worth, approximately $45 million. By every external measure, Joe McCann was the kind of man that a certain kind of story ends with. The successful man, the accomplished man, the man with resources and connections, and a life that matched the life Ashlee was building. From the outside, they looked like a couple at the absolute height of things. What the outside could not see is what this investigation is about. How the two of them came together, how long they had been together, and the details of their relationship before Tanzania are not fully documented in public records. What we know is that by the time they boarded the flight to East Africa in early April 2026, they were serious. They were living the kind of life that generates content. They were the kind of couple that made people in Ashlee's comments say things like, "This is what I am building toward." And then on April 3, 2026, during a safari in Tanzania, Joe McCann got down on one knee. A lion moved through the tall grass in the background. The African sky was enormous behind them. And Ashlee Robinson said yes. She posted the video herself. Her caption read, "Still taking this in. Somewhere in Africa." Her comments exploded. Thousands of women who had been watching her build this life were watching her arrive at the destination they had all been celebrating together. The hearts, the congratulations, the shared joy of a woman who had refused to settle and had ended up exactly where she deserved to be. 2 days later, on April 5th, Ashlee turned 31. She posted a photograph of herself feeding a giraffe from a wooden deck. On the floor around her, red and white rose petals had been arranged to spell out HBD Ashlee. The ocean stretched out behind her. The light was golden. She looked like someone in the middle of a chapter they will spend the rest of their life talking about. Her caption, Chapter 31, and I'm exactly where I need to be. It was her last Instagram post. She was dead within a week. On April 6th, the day after Ashlee's birthday, the couple moved from the safari property to Zuri Zanzibar. Zuri Zanzibar is a luxury resort on Nungwi Beach, on the northern tip of the island. Private villas, ocean views, prices approaching $950 a night. The kind of resort you book when you want to mark an occasion as permanent. When you want to say to the person you are with, this is not a vacation, this is the beginning of something. But Zuri Zanzibar is also something else. It is not the kind of resort you find by accident. It is boutique. It is remote by design. It sits away from Stone Town, away from the port, away from the parts of Zanzibar that appear in every tourist guide and every travel influencer's reel. It is in Nungwi, a community on the northern coast that has its own rhythm, its own regulars, its own social infrastructure. You go to Zuri Zanzibar because you know it, or because someone who has been there before told you exactly where to go and why. Nungwi is not a transient place. It is not a hotel strip where guests cycle through and disappear, and are replaced by identical guests who never interact with the surrounding community. It is a place where the resort staff know the returning guests, where the local vendors and community members recognize faces that appear more than once, where a man who makes a habit of coming back eventually becomes known, not just as a tourist, as a presence, a pattern, a regular. The question that formed immediately in Ashlee's community, in the corners of the internet that were already paying attention to her disappearance, was a simple one. Had Joe McCann been to Zanzibar before? Not as an accusation, not as established fact, as a question. The kind of question that forms naturally when a man chooses a remote boutique resort on a specific corner of a small island, and the staff seems to know him, and the community seems to know him, and there is nothing about his presence there that reads like a first visit. Had he been here before? And if he had, what had brought him here? And what had he left behind? Before we go any further, I need to be precise with you about what is confirmed and what is not, because this investigation is only useful if it is honest about the difference. What follows comes from what multiple social media outlets covering this case described as a local Tanzanian source, a woman who lives in Zanzibar for part of the year. This source did not go to police. She went to the community of online investigators who had been documenting this case in real time and demanding answers on behalf of Ashlee's family. Her account has not been confirmed by Zanzibar police, by hotel management, or by any official investigative body. I am presenting it because it exists, because it has been reported widely, and because when you place it beside the confirmed police record, it changes the way the confirmed facts read. That is the work of this kind of investigation. Not to state things you cannot prove, but to put verified facts and credible unverified accounts in the same room and ask an honest question about what they look like together. Here is what the source allegedly stated: that Joe McCann was not a first-time visitor to Zanzibar, that he had been to the island multiple times before this trip, that staff and locals in the area around Nungwi recognized him, that his presence on the island had a history, a pattern, a familiarity that extended well before April 6, 2026, and that during the trip with Ashlee, the birthday trip, the engagement trip, the chapter she had publicly announced to the world, he was leaving the villa at night while she slept. The specifics of what the source alleges he was doing on those nights are part of the unverified account. What the source described to the community investigators was a picture of a man whose relationship to Zanzibar was deeply personal in ways that had nothing to do with the woman he had just proposed to. And then, according to this unverified account, Ashlee found out. There was a confrontation, a moment where what had been happening in the shadows moved into the open between them. And from that moment forward, the fighting that police would later confirm as frequent and continuous was already beginning. Now hold that account in your mind, clearly labeled as unverified, and let's look at what the police did confirm. Zanzibar police confirmed the following publicly, including in statements to CBS News. From the moment the couple checked into Zuri Zanzibar on April 6th, they had been quarreling. Not occasionally. Not after a difficult conversation or a long travel day. Frequently. That is the word that appears in the police record. Frequently. From check-in. Continuously across 3 days. April 6th. April 7th. April 8th. 3 days of fighting inside a $950 a night resort, where other guests shared pool decks and walkways and terraces. 3 days of conflict that the surrounding environment, staff, guests, the daily infrastructure of a boutique resort was absorbing and witnessing. I want you to understand what it means for a resort to be witnessing a conflict. A luxury resort is not a private home. It is not a sealed environment where what happens inside stays inside. The walls of a private villa carry sound. The footpaths between villas at night are not empty. The staff who move through those spaces at all hours are trained, professionally, to read the emotional temperature of the guests in their care. They notice when a couple stops eating breakfast together. They notice when one person is at the pool and the other is nowhere to be found. They notice the silences that settle over two people who were celebrating a week ago. And they notice when those silences break loudly. This is their job. This is what it means to work in luxury hospitality. To read every room, at every hour, without appearing to read anything at all. 3 days of quarreling frequently. The police confirmed this through witnesses, which means multiple people, guests, staff, or both, were aware enough of the sustained conflict between Ashlee and McCann to provide consistent corroborating accounts to investigators afterward. This was not a secret. Not entirely. Not the way the people inside that villa may have believed it was. Now think about the timeline. The proposal was April 3rd. Ashlee said yes under that open African sky, with a lion moving through the grass behind them. She turned 31 on April 5th and posted a photo that radiated joy to 100,000 people. She wrote that she was exactly where she needed to be. And then on April 6th, from the very first moment she walked through the doors of Zuri Zanzibar, something was already wrong. Something happened between April 3rd and April 6th, or on April 6th, or after April 6th, something that shifted the entire emotional reality of that trip. That transformed a birthday engagement celebration into 3 consecutive days of sustained, confirmed conflict. The unverified account of the local source describes exactly what that something may have been. Ashlee found out. I want you to sit inside the reality of Ashlee's position for a moment. Not abstractly. Not as a narrative device. Actually sit inside it. You are 31 years old. You have spent years building a life that looks from the outside like everything you always wanted. You have 100,000 people watching. You have just said yes to a proposal in one of the most visually stunning environments on Earth. You have posted the video. Your comments are full of celebration and love. and the particular joy of witnessing someone arrive. And then you find out that the man who got down on one knee on the safari plane, the man with $45 million, and the investors in the Forbes quotes, and the hand you are now wearing a ring on, has been leaving the villa at night. That this island knows him, that the staff know him, that the community knows him, that his familiarity with this place runs far deeper than he ever told you. You are not in Miami. You are not in a city with a subway and a friend who can be there in 20 minutes, at an airport you can reach by cab. You are on an island off the coast of East Africa. You are at a boutique resort in Nungwi, far from Stone Town, far from the airport, far from any infrastructure that would allow you to simply leave. The travel arrangements are in his name. The room is booked under his name. The flights home, whatever they are connected to his logistics. You are in the room he organized, in the resort he chose, on the island where people know his name, in a country where you do not speak the language, do not know the systems, do not have a clear path toward extracting yourself from a situation that is falling apart in real time. There is no friend down the hall to knock on the door of. There is no family member who can be there within the hour. There is no trusted face in the lobby who knows your history and can read your face and understand in an instant that something is very wrong. There is just the villa, and the ocean, and him, and 100,000 people on the other side of the world who think you are living the dream. You are 31 years old and you are on the other side of the world, and the ground beneath you has just given way. You built a platform around choosing yourself, around refusing to accept less than you deserve, around the principle that women who know their worth do not shrink or settle. And now you are in a villa, on an island where you cannot leave, confronting the possibility that the life you announced to the world was built on something you were never supposed to see. That is what those 3 days of quarreling frequently look like from the inside. On the night of April 8th, the argument escalated beyond what had been happening for 3 days. What we know about this escalation does not come from Joe McCann. It does not come from Ashlee. It comes from strangers, other hotel guests, people who had no relationship to Ashlee Robinson or Joseph McCann. People who were staying at the same resort for their own reasons, their own celebrations, their own private lives. People who had nothing to gain from reporting what they heard. They heard something loud enough and urgent enough to penetrate the walls of a luxury resort villa. Something recognizable enough that when investigators later gathered their accounts, those accounts were consistent. The characterization that appears in the official record of what those third-party witnesses reported is this: a romantic conflict. That phrase is precise. It is not disturbance. It is not noise complaint. It is not an ambiguous sound that could be interpreted multiple ways. The guests who reported what they heard to hotel staff used language that specifically identified what they were hearing: a romantic conflict between two people. Let that land. You are at a resort that costs nearly $1,000 a night. You are trying to have your own evening in your own private villa. And from somewhere nearby you hear something that is identifiable, to strangers, as a romantic conflict. Loud enough to reach you, distinctive enough that you recognize it, serious enough that you feel you have to say something. You go to hotel staff. Hotel management is alerted, and here is where the resort did something that matters enormously. Joe McCann was moved to a separate villa, approximately 10 minutes away on foot. This was not a knock on the door and a polite request for quiet hours. This was not a noise complaint that results in a verbal warning and a manager walking away. This was a physical relocation. A guest removed from his accommodation and placed in a separate location, a 10-minute walk from the woman he had proposed to 5 days earlier. Think about what it takes for a luxury resort to make that decision. These are hospitality professionals. Their job is to ensure that guests have a comfortable, private, undisturbed experience. They do not remove guests from their villas casually. They do not make that call on a whim or an overreaction. By the time hotel management decided to physically relocate McCann, they had assessed the situation using their professional judgment, the accounts of the witnesses who had reported the conflict, and their own direct observation, and they had determined that physical separation was the appropriate and necessary response. That is an institutional judgment about the seriousness of what was happening in that villa. Ashlee remained in the villa. McCann was moved. The two of them were now approximately 10 minutes apart on a resort that cost nearly $1,000 a night on an island in the Indian Ocean. And then the hours passed. Zanzibar police confirmed to ABC News that Ashlee Robinson was found unresponsive in her villa approximately 2 to 3 hours after hotel management separated the couple. 2 to 3 hours. That is the confirmed window. Not 4 hours. Not the next morning. Approximately 2 to 3 hours after the intervention of hotel management, a staff member found Ashlee Robinson unresponsive in her villa. She was rushed to a local hospital. She was pronounced dead on April 9, 2026, 4 days after her 31st birthday. Let me put those 2 to 3 hours in context for you, because the context is everything. She had been quarreling with McCann for 3 days straight, confirmed by police witnesses. The argument escalated on April 8, to the point that strangers felt compelled to report it to staff. Hotel management assessed the situation as serious enough to physically relocate McCann. Ashlee was alone in the villa. McCann was 10 minutes away. And approximately 2 to 3 hours later, she was found unresponsive. 2 to 3 hours in which no one was with her. 2 to 3 hours in which she was alone in a villa, on an island far from home, days after the man she loved had proposed to her. Hours after strangers reported a romantic conflict loud enough to reach them through the walls of a luxury resort. 2 to 3 hours that the people who loved Ashlee Robinson most will never accept a simple explanation for. Tanzanian authorities announced that Ashlee Robinson died by suicide. That is the official ruling from Zanzibar police. Her family rejects it. Completely. Without hesitation. Ashlee's parents, Yolanda Denise Andrus and Harry Robinson, found out what happened to their daughter the way that no parent should ever find anything out. Late. Through the wrong person. And wrong. What they were told, when they were finally told, was that Ashlee was stable. Those were the words McCann used when he called them, 11 hours after she was found unresponsive. She is stable. Do not worry. That call came 11 hours after she was found. 11 hours after a hotel worker found Ashlee Robinson unresponsive and rushed her to a local hospital, the man who had proposed to her 5 days earlier called her parents and told them she was stable. And then he went silent. The next communication Ashlee's family received about the condition of their daughter did not come from Joe McCann. It came from the hotel. The hotel told them that Ashlee had died. Her father, Harry Robinson, told CBS News, "The fiancé did not reach out to us at all. We found out from the hotel. And that's devastating when your daughter's halfway around the world. Sit with what that means." Ashlee's mother, Yolanda Denise Andres, had FaceTimed with her daughter on her birthday. Had seen her face, heard her voice, watched her feed the giraffe, watched the rose petals on the floor spell out her name. She had been part of the celebration from 8,000 miles away, the way families do in 2026, through a screen and through love, and through the particular joy of watching your child live the life she chose. And then silence. And then an 11-hour gap. And then a phone call saying she is stable. And then the hotel calling to say she was not. Yolanda Denise Andres told ABC News, "My daughter Ashlee, she's no longer here with us, and we are trying to find out why." Uncertainty, mystery, anger, sadness. It's like a part of me has been taken. She was starting the next chapter of her life. Her father launched a GoFundMe to cover the costs of bringing Ashlee home and pursuing answers abroad. The family set a target of $50,000. They raised more than that, because when Ashlee's community learned what her family needed, they showed up. The same 100,000 people who had watched her build her life were not going to let her be brought home without a fight. On April 12, 2026, 3 days after Ashlee's death, a woman named Savannah Britt posted to X. Savannah Britt is a PR executive. She was one of Ashlee's closest friends. Her post was not a gentle question. It was not a diplomatic expression of concern. It was direct and it was public, and it was the post that broke this story open to the world. She wrote that anyone who knew Ashlee knew that she would never take her own life. She called for justice. She called for answers. She asked why an American woman had died abroad, and nothing had been said from the State Department or the Tanzanian government before she was forced to make the conversation happen herself. That post went viral. What formed around it was something that social media rarely produces at this scale. A genuine investigative community. Tens of thousands of people, predominantly black women, watching and documenting and demanding and refusing to allow the story to settle into a footnote. They were not spectators. They were investigators. They pulled records. They tracked timelines. They mapped the resort layout. They cross-referenced the police statements against the timeline. They noted that McCann had continued posting to X in the days after Ashlee's death, while her family was still waiting for answers. They documented every gap between what the official account said and what the confirmed facts established. They did what Ashlee's own platform had always been about. They refused to be quiet about something that deserved to be loud. The community understood something that institutions sometimes do not. That a 31-year-old woman from South Jersey, who built a life worth celebrating in public, who spent years telling women to choose themselves and demand more, who posted 4 days before she died that she was exactly where she needed to be. That woman deserves more than a 2-sentence official ruling and a closed file. She deserves the full weight of public attention. She deserves the kind of pressure that does not allow an investigation to go quiet. She deserves her name to be said loudly, repeatedly, until the answers come. As of the time this episode was produced, Joe McCann has not been charged with any crime. Zanzibar police publicly stated that McCann is being questioned as a witness, not a suspect. His passport was seized by Tanzanian authorities. He has been asked to remain in Tanzania pending the results of a forensic autopsy. He has not made any public statement. Multiple news outlets, ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, CoinDesk, attempted to reach him for comment. None received a response. On April 14, 2026, the Tanzania police force released a formal statement. Zuberi Chembera, Zanzibar's Deputy Commissioner of Police and Deputy Director of Criminal Investigations, confirmed that McCann's questioning was ongoing, and that the investigation remained active. An independent forensic autopsy was being pursued. Surveillance footage from the resort had been requested by Ashlee's family. The U.S. Embassy in Dar es Salaam dispatched a coroner to assist local authorities. The case is open. That word matters. Open. Zanzibar police have not closed the file. They have not released forensic findings. They have a man on the island whose passport they are holding, whose questioning they have described as ongoing, whose presence they have decided is necessary to maintain. And they have a woman who is dead at 31. 4 days after her birthday, in the room of a luxury resort, where strangers heard the argument that preceded her death, where hotel management determined the conflict was serious enough to require physical separation. 2 to 3 hours after that separation was enforced. The investigation is open. The forensics are pending. The family is fighting across an ocean. The community is watching from every continent. And the questions that have not been answered are the only questions that matter. What does this surveillance footage show? What does the forensic autopsy conclude? What does the island know that the official record has not yet been told? Her name was Ashlee Robinson. She was Ashlee Jenae. She was 31 years old. Born on April 5, 1995 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She grew up in South Jersey, moved to Miami, built a life that looked from the outside like the proof of everything she believed in. She told women to choose themselves. She demonstrated it publicly, daily, for years. She documented the soft life not as a fantasy, but as a philosophy. Not as a performance, but as evidence. She said yes to a proposal, under an African sky. She turned 31 and called home and FaceTimed with her mother, and posted a photograph of herself surrounded by rose petals, and wrote that she was exactly where she needed to be. She was dead within a week. Her family is still demanding answers. Her community is still watching. The investigation is open. And Ashlee Robinson deserved to know the truth before she said yes. She deserved to know the truth before she packed her bags. She deserved the truth every single day of that trip, in that villa, on that island, at that resort, where strangers heard her voice through the walls and felt compelled to say something. She spent years telling women that they deserved the full truth about the lives they are building and the people they are building them with. She deserved it too. Her name is Ashlee Robinson. Say it. Share it. Do not let it get quiet. The investigation is open. Her family is fighting. This channel is not finished. We will see you in the next one.